My name is Camille, and I'm 34 years old. I thought I was in love with the most honest woman in the world. Every weekend, she kissed me goodbye and said, "It's just work. I'll be back Sunday." But one Friday night, something inside me snapped. I followed her, and that's when I saw it. A quiet suburban street, a man waiting at the door, two little boys running into her arms yelling, "Mommy's home!" My stomach dropped. My girlfriend, the woman I shared a life with, was living a second one. And the worst part? When she finally turned and saw me standing there, she didn't look shocked. She smiled, like she'd been expecting me. I used to think I had everything I ever wanted: a stable job, a cozy apartment in the city, and a partner who seemed to love me more than life itself. Her name was Vanessa. She was the kind of woman who drew attention without even trying. All sharp cheekbones, effortless charm, and that confident way she carried herself. Everyone liked her. But the truth is, I don't think anyone ever really knew her, not even me. Vanessa and I met 3 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. She worked in marketing, always traveling, always busy, yet somehow always present when she was with me. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Our relationship grew fast. Within months, she moved into my apartment, and for a while, everything felt perfect, until the weekends started becoming strange. Every Friday evening, right around 7, Vanessa would start packing a small overnight bag. She'd say things like, "I've got an early client meeting Saturday morning," or "My sister needs help sorting some family paperwork." She always had a reason to be away for the weekend. Every time, she kissed me goodbye, promised to call, and disappeared. At first, I didn't question it. I wanted to be a supportive partner, the kind of person who trusted without hesitation. But after nearly a year of the same routine, something in my gut started to ache. The details never changed. Same black duffel bag, same blue jeans, same soft vanilla perfume that lingered long after she left, and that same nervous smile, the one that looked more like guilt than affection. When I'd ask, "How's your sister doing?" she'd answer quickly, "Good, busy," and then change the subject. The conversations were short, guarded. She was always tired on Sunday nights, too. Not the kind of tired that comes from traveling, but the kind that comes from pretending. I remember sitting across from her one night, watching her scroll through her phone and thinking, something isn't right. I couldn't explain it. There was no solid proof, no obvious lie, just an intuition, that quiet whisper in your chest telling you to look closer. When I confided in my best friend Rowena, she laughed. "Camille, she's a workaholic, not a cheater. You're overanalyzing." Maybe I was. Maybe I just needed reassurance. But still, that Friday, when Vanessa's phone buzzed on the counter while she was in the shower, I froze. I knew I shouldn't. I knew it was wrong. But curiosity, or maybe fear, won. The screen lit up with a message, just one sentence. "Can't wait to see you and the boys again." I felt my chest tighten as if the air itself betrayed me. The boys? Who were the boys? We didn't have children. She didn't have nephews she ever mentioned. And she certainly didn't have a life that included seeing anyone else on weekends. I stood there staring at that little glowing heart emoji, and everything inside me started to crumble. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it was a coworker being playful. Maybe it was a cousin. But no, that message was intimate. It felt like something she was hiding. When Vanessa came out of the shower, I pretended everything was fine. I smiled, I kissed her, I watched her get dressed, and I listened to her talk about her early morning flight. But deep down, I was already falling apart. That weekend, she left as usual. But for the first time, I didn't text her goodnight. I didn't ask how her day was. I just sat in silence, replaying every lie I hadn't noticed before. The trips, the vague excuses, the night she came home smelling like a different brand of soap. By Sunday evening, she returned, humming like she always did, setting her bag down and asking, "Want takeout or homemade tonight?" I smiled and said, "Takeout's fine." But something inside me had shifted. My trust, that quiet, naive faith, was gone. Over the next few days, I started paying attention to everything. Her expressions, her schedule, the subtle changes in her tone. And the more I watched, the more patterns I saw. She never received work calls during the week, only on Fridays. She never let me drive her to the airport or pick her up, and she always came back with a faint trace of cologne I didn't recognize. I started having trouble sleeping. My mind kept spinning stories, some rational, some unthinkable. I began scrolling through old photos of us, wondering which smiles were real and which were rehearsed. The woman I thought I knew had turned into a stranger in my own home. By Thursday night, I made a decision that both terrified and thrilled me. I was done waiting for answers. I was going to follow her. I didn't tell anyone. I just spent the next day planning carefully. I made sure my car had gas, set my phone to silent, and parked down the street before Vanessa even came home from work. My hands trembled the entire time. I felt like a criminal, but also like a detective in my own heartbreak. When Vanessa arrived, she looked beautiful, effortlessly composed, like she always did before she left. She kissed me on the forehead, said, "Be good while I'm gone," and walked out the door with that same black duffel bag slung over her shoulder. I waited until she turned the corner before I started the car. My heart was hammering so loud I thought it might give me away. Every red light felt like an eternity. Every turn a question. What if she sees me? What if I'm wrong? What if I find something I can't unsee? But I didn't stop. I kept following her taillights through the dim city streets, down the highway, past the exit I thought she'd take. And as the lights of our neighborhood disappeared behind me, a cold realization settled in. I was chasing a truth that could destroy everything I loved. Still, I couldn't turn back. I gripped the steering wheel tighter and whispered to myself, whatever she's hiding, I deserve to know. Vanessa's car veered left toward a quieter, more rural road I didn't recognize. She didn't seem nervous or cautious, almost like she'd driven this route hundreds of times before. The clock on my dashboard blinked 8:17 p.m. The night sky was endless, the road empty except for us. The only light came from her taillights, glowing red like two small promises leading me straight into the truth. And that's when it hit me. After tonight, nothing would ever be the same again. From my car, I watched as Vanessa's taillights disappeared down the road, my pulse racing faster than the engine beneath me. Whatever waited at the end of that drive, a lie, a secret, or a stranger, I was finally going to find out. The night Vanessa drove away, I followed her from a careful distance, my headlights dimmed just enough to stay invisible. The road stretched ahead like a ribbon of secrets waiting to unravel, and my hands trembled against the steering wheel. I kept telling myself this was insane, that I was crossing a line, but deep down, I already knew there was no going back. Once you start chasing the truth, it doesn't let you rest until you find it. I'd prepared like someone planning a mission. My gas tank was full. I'd packed snacks, a power bank, a notebook, and set my phone to silent. I even wore dark clothes, as if blending into the shadows could somehow protect me from what I might see. Each mile that passed made my chest tighten a little more. What if I was wrong? What if she really was working? What if I was about to destroy the one good thing in my life just because of a single suspicious text? But then, a darker thought crept in. What if I wasn't wrong at all? Vanessa's car was easy to spot, her silver sedan glinting faintly under the moonlight. She always drove with confidence, never speeding, never slowing. She knew exactly where she was going. I stayed 5 or 6 car lengths behind her, pretending I was just another driver passing through. After nearly 40 minutes, the city lights disappeared behind me. The scenery changed. Tall pine trees, winding country roads, and small clusters of houses growing farther apart. The world felt quieter out here. Too quiet. My pulse filled the silence. Then she turned onto a small, residential street lined with old oak trees and identical houses, the kind with white fences, porch swings, and mailboxes shaped like little barns. I slowed down, headlights dimmed further. Vanessa's car rolled to a stop in front of a pale yellow house with a blue door. A porch light flickered on as she parked. I pulled over 2 houses down, far enough to stay hidden, but close enough to see. I turned off my engine, heart pounding so loudly it felt like it echoed through the car. Through my windshield, I watched her step out, holding 2 grocery bags. Her face, it was different, relaxed, genuinely happy. It was the kind of smile I hadn't seen from her in months, carefree, real. That sight hit me like a punch. Who was she smiling for? Then the front door of the yellow house swung open. A man appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, with a warm expression that said he knew her. He walked straight to her, took one of the grocery bags from her hand, and leaned in to kiss her cheek. I froze. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like I'd lost the floor beneath me. And then it got worse. 2 little boys, maybe 6 or 7 years old, came running down the porch steps. "Mommy's home!" they shouted, throwing their arms around Vanessa's legs. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The world blurred in front of me, all sound muffled, except for the ringing in my ears. Mommy's home. Those words shattered everything I thought I knew. Vanessa knelt down, hugging them tightly, her laugh echoing across the street. The same laugh I used to fall asleep to. The same voice that told me she loved me every night. She wasn't their aunt. She wasn't their babysitter. She was their mother. My throat went dry as I whispered, "No, no, this can't be real." I reached for my phone, my hands trembling so violently I nearly dropped it. I turned on the camera and began recording, zooming in on her face just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. But there was no mistake. That was Vanessa. My Vanessa, smiling in front of a house I'd never seen, with a family I didn't know existed. Every detail burned into my mind. The way she touched the man's shoulder, the way the kids clung to her, the way her face glowed with a peace I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the face of someone living a double life. It was the face of someone completely at home. I watched for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. They carried the groceries inside together, closing the door behind them like any normal family settling in for the night. I sat there in my car, staring at that closed door, every nerve in my body screaming. I didn't cry at first. Shock held me still. It was like watching a movie I didn't want to star in. Questions swarmed my mind like hornets. Who was that man? Were those her kids? How long had she been doing this? Was I the other woman all along? I thought of every weekend she said she was on a business trip, every lie she'd told about family emergencies or late-night meetings. It all made sense now. The distance, the secrecy, the lies disguised as love. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. I wanted to storm up to the house, pound on the door, and demand answers, but I didn't move. I couldn't. Some part of me needed to see more before I confronted her. I needed to know why. After a few minutes, the front curtain shifted, and I saw her silhouette inside. She moved around the kitchen, helping the kids wash their hands, setting plates on the table. The man poured wine, leaning in to kiss her again. My stomach twisted violently. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood, trying to keep myself quiet. The more I watched, the more I realized how perfectly ordinary it all seemed. Like a life built on routine. Dinner, laughter, bedtime. And the terrifying part was, she looked happy, not guilty, not conflicted, just happy. I recorded everything, my phone camera catching glimpses through the window whenever the curtains shifted. Every moment felt unreal, but the pain in my chest was very real. It burned like betrayal and disbelief mixed into one. I stayed there until the lights in the living room dimmed. When the kids disappeared upstairs, I saw Vanessa and the man sitting close on the couch, watching something on TV. She leaned her head on his shoulder. That was the moment it truly hit me. I had never known her at all. The woman I loved, the one who made me coffee in the mornings, who kissed my forehead before bed, was living an entirely different life just a few miles away. And she'd been doing it right under my nose. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a whisper. Soft, trembling, disbelieving. "Who are you, Vanessa?" My voice vanished into the night as I stared at the yellow house glowing quietly in the darkness. And for the first time since I'd met her, I realized the truth wasn't just going to hurt me, it was going to destroy me. Camille grips her phone tightly, still recording, whispering again through tears, "Who are you, Vanessa?" as she watches the woman she loves laugh inside another man's home. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I parked my car a few houses down from that yellow home, her home, and sat there in the dark, clutching my phone like it could somehow protect me. The cold from the car windows crept into my bones, but I barely noticed. My entire body felt numb. I watched through the windshield as light spilled from the windows, and I could see fragments of their life, her life, playing out right in front of me. Vanessa, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was tucking two little boys into bed. She smoothed their hair, kissed their foreheads, and laughed when one of them asked for just one more story. I couldn't hear their voices, but I didn't need to. The affection in her gestures said everything. When she turned off the light in their room and walked back downstairs, a man was waiting for her. He pulled her into his arms like it was the most natural thing in the world, like he had done it 1,000 times before. She smiled up at him, that warm, unguarded smile I hadn't seen in months, and for a second, I had to look away. My reflection in the car window stared back at me, pale and hollow-eyed. I didn't recognize myself either. Every minute felt heavier than the last. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe she had a twin sister. Maybe there was some logical explanation. But even my denial sounded pathetic inside my head. I opened my phone and typed the address into a property search site. It didn't take long to find what I wasn't ready for. The house was listed under Vanessa Collins. My Vanessa's last name was Wells. My stomach flipped. Same first name, same face, but an entirely different identity. I clicked through public records, my hands shaking so violently I could barely type. The homeowner listed was Daniel Collins, spouse Vanessa Collins. No, 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 no. It felt like something inside me cracked open. I switched to social media, typing Vanessa Collins into the search bar. It took seconds to find her. There she was, the same face, same dark hair, same laugh lines, standing next to that man, smiling with those two boys. Picture after picture, family barbecues, beach trips, school events, the boys' birthdays, a Christmas photo where they all wore matching pajamas. The timestamps reached back 3 years, long before she ever moved in with me. My vision blurred. I scrolled faster, needing to see more but hating every second of it. Her captions read things like, "Grateful for my boys, family is everything, love grows here." I felt sick. My throat tightened as I whispered to the empty car, "You've been living 2 lives." I went back through our memory, every weekend trip, every delayed text, every time she said, "I wish I had kids someday." She didn't wish it. She already had them. All this time, I thought we were building something real, but I was just part of the scenery in her double life, a hidden chapter she could close whenever it got inconvenient. I opened my contacts and scrolled to her name. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the call button. I wanted to scream at her, to demand why she did this, but then a colder thought hit me. What if she lies again? What if I hear her voice and still want to believe her? I hit call anyway. The line rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hey babe," she said softly. "Sorry, I can't talk long. I'm in a late meeting with a client." Her voice was smooth, calm, the same tone she used every weekend. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself not to break. "That's okay," I said quietly. "Just wanted to hear your voice." "Aw," she said, with that same practiced sweetness. "You're too cute. I'll call you tomorrow, okay?" I could almost hear the clinking of silverware in the background. A faint giggle, maybe one of the boys. I swallowed hard. "Sure," I whispered. "Talk soon." She hung up, and that was it. A perfectly delivered lie. Effortless, like breathing. My hand was shaking so violently that my phone nearly slipped from my fingers. I stared out at the quiet suburban street, at the house where my life had just collapsed in silence. The betrayal wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, peaceful. Like it had been happening all along, and I'd just finally tuned into the right frequency. I thought of all the times I'd defended her, to friends, to myself, the times I told people, Vanessa would never do something like that. She had. I felt anger crawl up from somewhere deep inside me. It started small, a tremor in my chest, then grew hotter with every breath. How dare she look me in the eyes and tell me she loved me, knowing she was going home to them every weekend? How dare she make me feel paranoid for suspecting her, when the truth was worse than anything I'd imagined? My tears dried, replaced by a sharp, burning clarity. I couldn't just sit here watching anymore. I needed answers. I deserved to see her face when I asked the question she'd spent years avoiding. Outside, the neighborhood was still, the kind of stillness that only exists in places built on routine. Lights flickered off one by one. The world around me seemed peaceful, almost mocking in its normalcy. But inside me, something snapped. I turned off my phone, tossed it onto the passenger seat, and stared at that yellow house. Her house, one last time. My pulse thudded in my ears as I imagined her sitting inside, maybe laughing at a movie, maybe tucking the boys in again, maybe leaning against that man's chest. It wasn't fair. None of it was fair. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, no more lies. I didn't know what I'd say when I saw her. I didn't know if I'd scream, cry, or just crumble. But I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving without looking her in the eyes and hearing the truth. This time, she wouldn't hide behind excuses. This time, I'd see who she really was. With her heart pounding, Camille grips the car door handle and whispers, "I'm done watching." She steps out into the cold night air, eyes fixed on the yellow house, ready to knock and confront the woman who betrayed her. By sunrise, I still hadn't slept. The air inside my car felt heavy, suffocating, thick with the stench of betrayal and old coffee. My eyes burned from crying, but there was no turning back now. I had replayed last night in my mind over and over again, each time the images getting sharper, crueler, Vanessa's laughter, the way those kids clung to her, the man's hand resting on her back as they stood in the doorway like a picture-perfect family. I needed answers, not tomorrow, not next week, now. When? The first rays of morning light stretched across the quiet street. I climbed out of my car, my knees weak, but my resolve stronger than it had ever been. The yellow house looked so ordinary in daylight, almost innocent. A perfect little lie wrapped in white picket fences and rose bushes. I walked up the front path, each step echoing like a heartbeat. The closer I got, the louder the pulse in my ears became. My fingers hovered over the doorbell for a second before I finally pressed it. It rang, a soft chime that felt too gentle for the storm that was about to break. A few seconds later, the door opened. A man stood there, tall, warm smile, wearing a gray t-shirt and jeans. Daniel. He looked exactly like the photos I'd seen online, the kind of man who didn't have to work hard to seem trustworthy. His smile was easy, natural. "Hey there," he said. "Can I help you?" My throat went dry. My voice trembled as I said, "Hi, I'm a friend of Vanessa's, from work." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but he didn't seem to notice. "Oh, sure, come in." He stepped aside, completely unsuspecting. I walked past him into the house, every nerve in my body screaming. The air smelled like coffee and pancakes. There were toys scattered near the couch, a crayon drawing taped to the fridge that said, "I love you, Mom." The sound of footsteps came from the hallway. And then, there she was, Vanessa. She froze mid-step, a coffee cup in her hand. Her eyes widened in shock, and the color drained from her face. For a long, heavy moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was unbearable, thick with the weight of everything unspoken. "Camille," she whispered, her voice cracking slightly. Daniel looked between us, confused. "Wait, you two know each other?" Vanessa blinked fast, her voice shaky. Yeah, I didn't expect to see you here," she said quickly, setting the cup down on the counter. "Camille, can we talk outside?" Before Daniel could ask another question, Vanessa grabbed my arm gently and guided me toward the door. I didn't resist. My body was too numb for that. We stepped out onto the porch, and as soon as the door clicked shut behind us, I turned to face her. My composure snapped like glass under pressure. "What the hell is this, Vanessa?" I hissed, my voice shaking. "Who is he? Who are they? Do you think I wouldn't find out? That I'd just sit there waiting every weekend while you played house with your real family?" Her eyes filled with tears instantly. "Camille, please. You don't understand." "Then make me understand," I shouted, my hands trembling at my sides. "Because I've been sitting in that car all night watching you live a life I didn't even know existed. How long has this been going on? Were you ever going to tell me?" Her lip quivered. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is," I snapped. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you have a husband and 2 kids while I've been your side project." Vanessa's tears spilled over, her breathing shallow. She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said coldly. "Don't you dare touch me." For a moment, she just stood there looking broken. Then she whispered, "Camille, I had to do this." I laughed bitterly. "Had to? You had to lie to me for years? You had to build 2 lives and let me live in the shadow of one of them?" Her voice trembled. "It's not about you and me. It's about them. You don't know what you've walked into." "Then explain it," I demanded. "Because right now it looks like you're married to him. There are photos, Vanessa. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, family trips. You look happy." Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time, she didn't look like the confident, untouchable woman I knew. She looked scared. "Please," she whispered, "not here. Not in front of them. Let's go somewhere private, and I'll tell you everything." I shook my head. "You don't get to control this anymore." The door creaked open behind her, and Daniel's voice floated out. "Everything okay out here?" Vanessa turned quickly, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just work stuff. I'll be back in a minute." He nodded, seemingly reassured, and disappeared inside. When the door shut again, Vanessa turned back to me, her voice barely audible. "You shouldn't have come here, Camille." "Too late," I said. "You made me come here. You made me question everything I thought was real." She looked at me then, really looked, and something shifted in her eyes. Fear, guilt, and a kind of sorrow I didn't recognize. "You think I was happy?" she whispered. "You think this is some kind of game? I've been holding this together because I didn't have a choice." I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "You had a choice, Vanessa. You just didn't choose me." She pressed her palms to her face, taking a shaky breath. "You're right. You deserve the truth, but it's not the one you think." "Then what is it?" I demanded. She looked over her shoulder, making sure the door was still closed. Then she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that sent chills down my spine. "That man inside," she said. "He's not my husband." I blinked, confused. "What?" "He's my brother," she continued, "and those boys aren't my kids, they're his." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and strange. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but nothing about this made sense. My mind raced, tangled between disbelief and desperation. Then why lie? Why hide this from me? Why pretend every weekend? Her eyes darted toward the window. Because if you knew the truth, you'd never have stayed with me. Her voice broke on that last word, and before I could ask another question, she stepped back, wiping her face quickly as the door opened again. Daniel's voice called out, "Vanessa, the boys are asking for you." She turned away from me, her tone snapping back into something steady, practiced. "Coming." Then she looked back at me one last time, her eyes glistening. "Please, Camille, just go home. Forget what you saw." But how could I forget something that had already rewritten my entire life? Vanessa's voice wavered as she whispered, "That man inside isn't my husband. He's my brother, and those boys aren't my kids. They're his." Camille stood frozen on the porch, heart racing, realizing this lie might be deeper and darker than she ever imagined. I didn't go home. I couldn't, not after what she'd just told me. Those words echoed in my head long after I left her porch. He's not my husband. He's my brother, and those boys aren't my kid. They're his. It didn't make sense, but it also didn't sound like a lie. There had been something raw in her eyes, a flicker of panic that I'd never seen before. I drove aimlessly for an hour, trying to make sense of it all, until finally my phone buzzed. It was a text from Vanessa. "Meet me tomorrow morning. Same house. Come alone." No explanations, no apologies, just that. So the next morning, I found myself standing on that porch again, staring at the yellow door like it held all the answers I'd been chasing. My stomach churned as I knocked softly. Vanessa opened the door almost immediately. Her face looked pale, drawn, like she hadn't slept either. She motioned for me to follow her around to the backyard. It was early, the world still quiet except for the hum of distant traffic and birdsong. We sat across from each other on the patio, the tension between us thick enough to choke on. She clasped her hands together, then took a deep breath. "I owe you the truth," she said quietly. "You think?" I snapped before I could stop myself. She flinched but didn't argue. "You deserve to know everything. But you have to understand. I didn't lie because I wanted to hurt you. I lied because I didn't want to bring my past into your life." I folded my arms. "Then tell me about this past that's worth destroying me over." Vanessa looked down at her hands. For a moment I thought she might change her mind, but then she began to speak. "Years ago, I was with someone," she said softly. "His name was Trent Wilder. We met when I was 25. He was older, charming, successful, the kind of man who knew how to make people trust him." Her voice grew faint, trembling with old memories. "At first, he treated me like I was the center of the universe, but slowly, everything changed. The control started small. Who I talked to, where I went, what I wore. Then came the manipulation, the threats, the bruises. I swallowed hard, my anger flickering into something else, something closer to pity." She went on. "I tried to leave him 3 times. Each time he found me. He had connections. Friends in law enforcement, people who helped him cover things up. When I finally went to the police, they told me to stay quiet, that there wasn't enough evidence." She looked up, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "The last time I saw him, he told me if I ever tried to disappear again, he'd kill me." A shiver crawled down my spine. "So you ran," I whispered. She nodded. "I changed my name. Vanessa Collins isn't real. It's just one of the identities I use. My brother Daniel helped me. He's the only family I can trust. Every weekend I visit him and my nephews because they're all I have left. That's why I couldn't tell you. The less you knew, the safer you were." For a moment I just sat there, speechless. The story sounded unbelievable, dramatic, tragic, but possible. Her hands trembled as she spoke, and I could see the truth in her eyes. She wasn't acting. Still, part of me couldn't let go of the anger boiling beneath my skin. "You should have told me," I said quietly. "You made me feel like I was going crazy, like I was paranoid for asking questions." "I know," she whispered. "I hated lying to you. But if Trent found out about you..." She trailed off, her voice breaking. "He's not the kind of man who lets go easily." I stared at her, torn between wanting to hold her and wanting to scream. "You could have trusted me," I said. "We could have figured it out together." She shook her head. "You don't understand how far his reach goes. He's ruined people's lives for less. If he even suspected you were part of mine, he would have come for you too." The words hit hard. My anger softened, just slightly, replaced by something heavier, grief. I'd spent the last few days hating her, and now all I could feel was pity for the woman sitting across from me, still looking over her shoulder years later. Vanessa reached into her bag and pulled out a worn manila envelope. "Here," she said. "You need proof, right?" I hesitated, then took it. Inside were old court documents, police reports, and newspaper clippings, photos of a man with sharp eyes and a cruel smile, Trent. The reports detailed domestic assault charges that were later dropped, restraining orders that expired, a list of names, victims, witnesses, all sealed. My chest ached as I flipped through each page. There was no denying it. She'd lived through something horrific. Vanessa spoke softly. I changed my identity 5 years ago. Daniel moved to this neighborhood to help me stay hidden. Every weekend I visit so we can plan our next move, just in case Trent finds me again. I closed the folder slowly, setting it on the table. So all those times you left me alone on the weekends. I was checking to make sure my family was safe, she said. I couldn't risk him tracing me back to you. You were the one part of my life that felt normal. Her words cut deep. I wanted to believe her so badly, but something still didn't fit. I frowned. You said you changed your identity 5 years ago, but your social media as Vanessa Collins goes back 3 years. That means you didn't go into hiding until after those photos started. Her face stiffened. I deleted the older ones. It was too risky. The answer came too quickly, too rehearsed. I stared at her, my pulse rising again. Are you sure that's the truth? She didn't respond right away. Her eyes darted toward the fence like she was afraid someone might be listening. Camille, please, she whispered. Don't dig any deeper. The less you know, the better. I hated that sentence. I'd heard it before, from liars, from manipulators. My gut twisted. Was she scared of Trent, or scared of getting caught in another lie? Before I could press her further, she froze. Her gaze shifted past me toward the street. Vanessa? I said, turning to follow her eyes. A dark sedan was parked across the road. The windows were tinted, the engine idling quietly. A figure sat inside, watching. Vanessa's face went white. Her hand gripped my arm. Camille, she whispered urgently. Don't look at him. Don't make it obvious. Who is that? I asked, my voice barely audible. Her breathing quickened, panic flashing in her eyes. It's him, she said. It's Trent. He found me. My blood ran cold. As the car engine revved softly and the tinted window rolled down just an inch, Vanessa's voice broke into a whisper. He knows I'm... For a long, frozen moment, all I could hear was the low hum of the car engine across the street. The black sedan sat there motionless, its tinted windows reflecting the pale morning light. Vanessa's grip on my arm tightened until it hurt. Don't look, she whispered again, her voice shaking, but I couldn't help it. I turned anyway. The moment my eyes met that dark window, the car's engine revved. The vehicle rolled forward slowly, then sped off down the road. Tires screeched, gravel kicked up, and within seconds it was gone. I blinked, stunned. He's gone, I said quietly. Vanessa's chest was rising and falling rapidly, her face drained of color. He found me, she murmured. I knew this day would come. Her panic was real, or at least it looked real, but something inside me refused to accept it at face value. Vanessa, listen, I said firmly. If he's really dangerous, we need to go to the police. They can protect you. She shook her head violently. No, they won't. They never believed before. He has friends everywhere. You don't understand how powerful he could step closer. Then let's tell someone higher up. An attorney, a journalist, someone. You can't keep running like this. Her eyes darted toward the street again, wide and frantic. You don't get it. If he knows where I am, if he's seen me with you, then you're not safe either. Her words chilled me to my core. Then come with me, I said. Stay at my place tonight. We'll figure something out. After a long hesitation, she nodded. That night, back at my apartment, she barely spoke. She paced the living room for hours, jumping at every noise, checking the window blinds again and again. Her paranoia was suffocating. I tried to calm her down, made her tea, told her she was safe here, but she couldn't sit still. I can't sleep, she muttered. Not when I know he's close. I sighed, exhausted. Then don't sleep, but please at least stay inside. Finally, sometime after midnight, she curled up on the couch. I stayed awake longer, listening to the sound of her breathing, still unsure what was real anymore. When I finally dozed off, the sky was turning gray. By the time I woke up, the couch was empty. Her blanket was folded neatly, her teacup sat washed on the counter, and on the kitchen table there was a note. Don't follow me this time. It's safer for you. I read it over and over again, my heart sinking with each word. Safer for me? What did that even mean? I grabbed my phone and called her, straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I texted her, Vanessa, where are you? Please call me. The message never delivered. I didn't care what she said. I wasn't about to just sit here and do nothing. Within the hour, I was back in my car, driving toward Daniel's neighborhood. The sky was overcast, heavy with the threat of rain. Every mile between us felt like a countdown to something terrible. When I pulled up to the yellow house, Daniel was in the driveway, washing his car. He looked up, surprised. Oh, Camille, he said awkwardly, wiping his hands on a rag. Didn't expect to see you again. I forced a smile. Hey, sorry to drop by. Is Vanessa home? He hesitated just a little too long before answering. No, haven't seen her since yesterday. The words hit me like a punch. Yesterday? I repeated. Are you sure? She said she was staying here. He looked away, suddenly interested in the rag he was twisting between his fingers. Yeah, no, she hasn't come by. Maybe she changed her plans. Something was off. His tone was too casual, too rehearsed. I tilted my head, studying him. You two are close, right? She said you're her brother. He froze, just for a split second, but I saw it. His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered. Of course, he said quickly. Family's everything. The way he said it, forced, deliberate, made my stomach twist. I nodded slowly, pretending to accept it. Mind if I use your bathroom before I head out? He hesitated again, then gestured toward the front door. Sure, inside, down the hall. I stepped inside the house, my pulse quickening. The scent of coffee and cologne hung in the air. The living room looked exactly as it had before. Neat, normal, domestic. But something about the stillness felt wrong. While Daniel's footsteps moved away toward the kitchen, I slipped quietly down the hall, not toward the bathroom, but into a small study just off the living room. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the walls were lined with framed photos, family moments, vacations, birthdays, and right in the center of it all, one photo that froze me in place. It was Vanessa, smiling, but not in a sisterly way. She stood next to Daniel, his arm wrapped tightly around her waist. Their faces were close, intimate, too intimate. The small plaque on the frame read, Dan and Vanessa, Anniversary, 2019. My breath caught. Anniversary. My heart started to hammer. I stumbled back, my mind racing. This couldn't be real. Maybe it was a joke, an inside reference, something harmless. But deep down, I knew better. I grabbed the frame, flipping it over. On the back, in Vanessa's handwriting, were the words, Our first year together, always. My world tilted on its axis. Brother and sister? No, that was another lie. I turned toward the door, my pulse pounding so hard it hurt. Daniel was standing there, watching. His expression had changed, no longer polite, but cold. You shouldn't be in here, he said flatly. I held up the photo, my voice trembling. What is this? He didn't answer. Who is she, Daniel? I demanded. Because she told me you were her brother. But this... I shook the frame. This says otherwise. He stepped closer, his tone low and measured. You need to leave, Camille. Tell me the truth, I shouted, my voice cracking. But he didn't flinch. He just stared at me. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that made my stomach turn. Not guilt, not fear, just control. I backed away slowly, clutching the photo to my chest. He took one more step forward. Vanessa doesn't belong to you, he said softly. The words sliced through me like a knife. I bolted for the door, heart hammering, lungs burning. I didn't stop running until I was back in my car. My hands shook so hard I could barely fit the key into the ignition. As I drove away, tears blurred my vision. Everything I thought I knew had collapsed. Vanessa's story, her fear, her so-called abusive ex, none of it added up anymore. What if Trent wasn't the monster? What if she'd been lying about everything, even who she was hiding from? For the first time since all of this began, I felt a new kind of fear, not of losing her, but of ever finding out who she truly was. Camille sits trembling behind the wheel, staring at the photo in her lap. The caption burns in her mind. Our first year together. As realization dawns, a whisper escapes her lips. She lied about everything. For 2 days, I barely left my apartment. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Vanessa's smile, warm, familiar, and now completely fake. The photo of her and Daniel lay on my coffee table, mocking me. The caption still burned in my mind, our first year together. I had tried calling her dozens of times. Nothing. Every number she'd ever given me. Disconnected. Her social media, gone, like she'd been erased overnight. But the thing about erasing yourself is, it always leaves traces. I opened my laptop and started digging. I didn't even know where to start. Vanessa Wells, Vanessa Collins, maybe even another name entirely. I scoured public records, social media, online directories, but every trail went cold. Then I remembered the court documents she'd shown me, the ones about Trent, her supposed abuser. I still had photos of them on my phone. I zoomed in on the letterhead, looking for any official markings. That's when I noticed something strange. The seal at the top, the county emblem, it was wrong. The document wasn't from our state. It was from a place 3 states away. Curiosity turned to dread. I typed the jurisdiction into a public records database and searched the case number printed on the document. No results found. My pulse quickened. I checked again, this time removing the last digit. Nothing. I changed the name. Trent Wilder. Still nothing. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. The documents she'd shown me, they weren't just suspicious. They were fake. The realization hit me like a wave. The story about Trent, the brother, the double life, it was all an illusion carefully constructed to keep me from asking the wrong questions. So I started asking the right one. If Vanessa Collins didn't exist in official records, who did? I ran a reverse image of one of the photos from social media, a candid shot of her at a lake holding one of the boys. It took a minute, but finally a result popped up. It wasn't Vanessa Collins. The photo appeared on an old local news article from 5 years ago. The headline made my stomach drop. Accountant Victoria Chase wanted for multi-state embezzlement and identity fraud. Her hair was longer, her smile a little different, but it was her. Vanessa was Victoria. I clicked the article, my hands trembling. It detailed how Victoria Chase, a senior accountant at a real estate firm, had siphoned over $500,000 through falsified transactions. When the fraud was discovered, she vanished, leaving behind multiple victims, including her fiancé. I felt sick. Scrolling down, I saw more photos. Victoria at charity events, office parties, smiling with people who had no idea they were about to lose everything. The same confidence, the same effortless charm I'd fallen for. The dangerous ex wasn't an abuser. He was probably her victim. I searched deeper, finding another article about one of the victims who tried to locate her. His name was Caleb Foster, a small business owner whose savings had been wiped out in the scheme. Against my better judgment, I found his business website and called the number listed. He answered on the second ring. "Foster Accounting," he said. "Hi," I began nervously. "You don't know me, but I think I've met someone you used to know. A woman named Victoria Chase." There was a long silence on the other end, then a bitter laugh. "Used to know? Yeah, you could say that. She destroyed my life." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Can I ask what happened?" He sighed. "She conned me, and half the people in our office. Said she was investing company funds into real estate portfolios. Turned out she was moving it into fake accounts. By the time we caught on, she'd cleaned out everything and disappeared." I hesitated. "Did she ever mention an abusive ex? Someone named Trent?" "Trent?" He paused. "Yeah, she told me he was her ex-husband. Said he ruined her credit and left her in debt. But later we found out Trent didn't exist. She used that story every time someone got too close." My heart dropped. So, all of it was a lie. He exhaled slowly. "Victoria could make anyone believe anything. If she's with you, get out. Don't wait. Don't try to save her. You can't." I hung up, my hands shaking. For the next few hours, I sat in silence, staring at nothing. My brain replayed every moment we'd shared. Every smile, every late-night confession, every "I love you." All of it scripted. All of it calculated. And the cruelest part? I still missed her. But I needed to know more. I needed to see it with my own eyes. That evening, I drove back to Daniel's house, or whatever his real name was. The street was eerily quiet. The yellow house looked empty. Curtains drawn, porch light off, a for sale sign stood crooked in the yard. They were gone. I knocked anyway, more out of desperation than logic. No answer. I circled around the side yard, peering through the windows. The rooms were stripped bare, furniture gone, walls empty, like no one had ever lived there. A chill ran through. They hadn't just moved out. They'd vanished. Overnight. I pulled out my phone and recorded everything. The empty house, the sign, the address. Then I drove straight to the nearest police station. The officer at the front desk looked skeptical as I explained, but when I showed him the photos, the fake documents, and the article about Victoria Chase, his expression hardened. "We've had reports about her before," he said quietly. "Different names, different states. She's smart, knows how to disappear." I gave them everything. The videos, the messages, the notes, even the recording from the night I saw her with Daniel. They took copies and promised to investigate. 2 days later, I got a call from the detective assigned to the case. "Camille," he said, "you were right. Vanessa. Collins doesn't exist, but Victoria Chase does, or at least she did. She's wanted in 3 states for fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Multiple aliases. We've got a file this thick on her." I closed my eyes, swallowing the lump in my throat. So she's gone. For now, he replied. But people like her don't stay hidden forever. That night I tried to sleep, but the weight of it all pressed down on me like a nightmare that wouldn't end. My apartment felt colder, emptier. The silence screamed with memories I couldn't escape. Then, just as I started to drift off, I heard the soft rustle of paper from the front door. I sat up, heart pounding. An envelope lay on the floor, slid through the mail slot. No return address, just my name, handwritten. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, one line. I loved you, even if it was a lie. I stared at the words until they blurred. My breath caught in my throat. She was out there, watching, and even now, even after everything, a part of me still wanted to believe her. Camille clutches the letter, whispering into the empty apartment. Where are you, Vanessa? Knowing the answer might destroy her all over again. It's strange how silence can be louder than any scream. Weeks passed, but the quiet in my apartment felt deafening. Every sound, every creak of the floor, every car door slamming outside made me jump. Sleep didn't come easily anymore. When it did, it came with dreams that twisted into nightmares. Vanessa's smile turning cold, her voice morphing into a whisper that said my name over and over again. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, clutching the pillow like it could anchor me to a world that still made sense. But sense was long gone. The police never found her, or Victoria, or whatever her real name was. The detective told me people like her could vanish into thin air, start over, blend in. She's probably halfway across the country by now, he said. But I didn't believe that. I couldn't. Because even though she was gone, I still felt her everywhere. In the songs she used to hum in the kitchen, in the faint scent of her vanilla perfume that still lingered on the couch cushion, in the way I caught myself reaching for my phone every evening at 7, waiting for her text that would never come. I'd built my life around her, and now every corner of it hurt to touch. I started therapy 2 weeks after the police closed the case. My therapist, Dr. Laura Benson, was calm and kind, the type of person who listened without judgment. She'd ask gentle questions like, "What part of her are you still holding on to?" I'd always answer the same way, the version I thought was real. Dr. Benson told me something during our third session that stuck with me. "Camille," she said softly, "you're lucky you found out. Most victims of deception never get the truth. They spend years wondering what went wrong. You got to see who she really was." Lucky. I rolled that word around in my head for days. Was I lucky to have discovered the truth, or cursed to live with it? Still, therapy helped. Slowly, I began piecing myself together, one scar at a time. I started working again, jogging in the mornings, trying to rebuild the rhythm of normal life. One Saturday, I decided it was time to clear out what was left of her. I dragged out the old storage box from the back of my closet, the one filled with pieces of our relationship. Photos, notes, a scarf she'd left behind, movie stubs from nights I thought were special. I laid everything on the floor like evidence from a crime scene. My chest tightened as I sifted through it all. For every happy memory, there was a lie hidden under. Every smile now felt staged, every love note poison. I started throwing things away, one by one. The perfume bottle, trash. The concert tickets, trash. The handwritten notes that once made me cry with joy, trash. But then, at the bottom of the box, I found a small photograph. It was us, on the beach, wind in our hair, laughing like the world was simple. I'd forgotten it even existed. My hands trembled as I turned it over. On the back, in her looping handwriting, she'd written, "You were the only real thing I ever had." My breath hitched. The room blurred. Was that true? Or was it just another performance? One final manipulation to keep me from hating her completely. I sank to the floor, clutching the photo to my chest, tears spilling down my face. Even after everything, part of me wanted to believe her, that somewhere inside all her lies there was a flicker of something real. But the moment passed. I wiped my eyes, stood up, and slid the photo back into the box. Then I sealed it with tape and shoved it to the back of the closet again, where her memory belonged. That night, for the first time in months, I slept through the night. The next few weeks felt lighter. I started cooking again, seeing friends, even laughing without guilt. It wasn't happiness exactly, but it was close enough. I told myself that maybe, after everything, I could find until one evening, everything. It was a Friday, the kind of quiet night when the world feels peaceful. I was sitting on the couch, reading, when I heard voices in the hallway outside my apartment. The sound of boxes being set down, laughter, and someone saying, "Welcome to the building?" New neighbors, I thought absently, but then I heard her laugh. My book slipped from my hands. My blood went cold. That sound, soft, melodic, a little husky at the end. I knew it better than my own heartbeat. No, it couldn't be. I stood and crept toward the door, heart hammering. Peeking through the peephole, I saw the building manager chatting with a woman as she signed some paperwork. She had dark hair tied back in a loose bun, a long coat, and a smile that made my stomach twist. When she turned slightly, the hallway light hit her face. It was her, Vanessa, or Victoria, or whoever she was now. I stumbled back from the door, pressing a hand over my mouth to stop the sound that almost escaped me. My heart thudded so hard it hurt. I waited until the manager left before I dared to look again. She was standing directly across the hall from me, unlocking the door to the vacant apartment. My mind raced. How was this possible? Had she followed me? Or was this some sick coincidence? I told myself to call the police, but I didn't move. I couldn't. My legs felt like they'd turned to stone. Then, as if she could feel me watching, she turned. Our eyes met through the peephole. For a moment, neither of us moved. The hallway was silent. My breath caught in my throat. And then, she smiled. Not the wide, charming grin I'd fallen for, but a slow, knowing smirk. Her lips moved, forming the words. I didn't need to hear them to understand. We meet again. A shiver crawled down my spine. She turned her key, opened the door to her new apartment, and stepped inside. The latch clicked shut. I sank to the floor, my back against the door, shaking from head to toe. She was back. Not in my memories, not in my dreams. Across the hall, watching, waiting. Camille stares at her front door, the echo of Vanessa's whisper still ringing in her ears. We meet again. The realization sinks in. The woman she thought she'd escaped has returned, and this time she's closer than ever. The first night after Vanessa moved in across the hall, I didn't sleep at all. Every creak in the hallway made my pulse spike. I sat on the couch, with my phone in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other, waiting for her to make a move that never came. When morning finally arrived, I stood at my window, staring at the apartment across from mine. The blinds were drawn, no sign of her. Part of me wanted to believe it wasn't her, that my mind had finally fractured under the weight of everything. But deep down, I knew better. Vanessa was too calculated for coincidence. That day, I called Detective Marsh, the officer who'd handled her fraud case. He sounded surprised to hear from me. "Camille," he said cautiously, "you okay?" "No," I replied, my voice low but steady. "She's here." A long pause. "Who?" "Vanessa," I said. "Or Victoria, or whatever name she's using now. She's living in my building, across the hall." He exhaled sharply. "Are you sure?" 100%. He told me not to confront her. "We'll reopen the file," he promised, "but we'll need proof. Recent activity, confirmation she's still using fake IDs. You can help us if you're careful." Careful. That word became my mantra. For the next few weeks, I lived two lives of my own. By day, I pretended to be the woman still recovering, friendly, polite, the perfect neighbor. By night, I watched. I noted her visitors, her mail, her routine. I recorded every interaction discreetly on my phone, labeling the files with dates and times. I told myself I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it for justice. The first time she knocked on my door, I almost didn't open it. But curiosity, dangerous, familiar, won. When I did, she stood there holding a plate of cookies, smiling like nothing had ever happened. "Hi," she said softly. "I wanted to come by to apologize." I forced a neutral expression. "Apologize for what?" She blinked, feigning confusion. "For how things ended. For disappearing. I was scared, Camille. I made mistakes." Her voice was honey, warm, soothing, practiced, the same tone she'd used when she first told me she loved me. I stepped aside, letting her in. My heart pounded, but my mind was clear. Every second of our conversation was being recorded through my phone on the kitchen counter. She looked around, her eyes scanning the apartment. "It's strange being here again," she said, tracing a finger along the countertop. "You've redecorated." I gave a tight smile. "You could say that." We sat across from each other like old friends trying to find a rhythm. Vanessa talked about regret, about new beginnings. She said she was working under a new name now, Veronica Hale, and wanted to make things right. I let her speak. I asked gentle questions. I played the part of the wounded but forgiving ex. She was too narcissistic to realize I was collecting every word as evidence. "Do you ever think about me?" she asked suddenly, her tone almost tender. "Every day," I lied. She smiled faintly, eyes glinting. "You always did wear your heart on your sleeve." The following weeks became a dangerous dance. She'd knock at my door with excuses, borrow sugar, ask for help with Wi-Fi, offer wine as a peace gesture. Each time I played along, smiling, listening, recording. Meanwhile, I stayed in constant contact with Detective Marsh. We analyzed the audio clips, traced her aliases, even found the fake lease she'd signed for her new apartment using forged identification. The detective's voice on the phone grew sharper each day. "You're close, Camille. Just a few more confirmations." The closer I got to the truth, the calmer I became. The fear that once paralyzed me began to fade, replaced by something colder, resolve. Then came the night everything fell apart. Vanessa showed up at my door, eyes glossy from wine, a familiar smirk playing at her lips. "You know," she said, leaning against the doorframe, "I really did love you. You brought out the best parts of me, the parts that almost felt real." I forced a soft laugh. "Almost?" She stepped closer, close enough for me to smell her perfume, vanilla and deceit. "Don't pretend you didn't miss me," she whispered. "We were good together." I looked her in the eyes and said quietly, "We were perfect." She smiled. "Then, why did you turn me in?" The blood drained from my face. She knew. I tried to stay calm. "I don't know what you're talking about." Her smirk deepened. "You forget, Camille. I know when you're lying. You've been playing nice, but you're not that good of an actress." She leaned in, her voice a whisper. "Next time you record me, maybe hide your phone better." My stomach twisted. Before I could respond, she turned and walked back toward her apartment, glancing over her shoulder one last time. "You'll never win," she said softly. That night, I barely breathed. I called Detective Marsh immediately. "She knows," I told him. "I think she's planning to leave again." "Then it's time," he said. "We've got enough to move. Stay inside tomorrow morning and don't open the door for anyone." The next day dawned gray and still. I sat by my window, staring at her door across the hall. My hands shook as I clutched a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Then, just after 9, the sound came. Heavy footsteps, a knock, and a voice shouting, "Police! Open up!" I froze. The door across the hall burst open. Vanessa, no, Victoria Chase, stood there in shock as officers flooded the hallway. They pulled her hands behind her back, reading her rights. Papers and fake IDs spilled from a folder she'd dropped, scattering across the floor. She didn't fight. She just turned her head, searching the hallway until her eyes found mine. For a long moment, we stared at each other, two people who destroyed each other in different ways. As they led her past me, she paused just long enough to whisper, "You'll always remember me." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The elevator doors closed, and she was gone. Silence settled over the building again, but it wasn't the same silence that had haunted me before. This one felt lighter, freer. Weeks passed. The police sent updates confirming she'd confessed to multiple fraud charges. There would be a trial, maybe prison time. But that part didn't matter to me. What mattered was that I had finally taken back the power she'd stolen. I kept seeing Dr. Benson, kept rebuilding. I started writing again, working, even laughing. The world began to look less like a crime scene and more like a place I could live in again. Sometimes I still think about her, about the woman who could become anyone, about the way she made me feel seen even when it was all a lie. But now, those memories don't hurt the same way. They remind me how much I survived. One evening, as I stood on my balcony watching the sunset paint the city in gold, I thought about how her story ended, with handcuffs and silence, and how mine was still being written. She built her life on lies, but I built mine back from the ashes, stronger, wiser, and finally, in the end, I stopped asking why she lied and started asking why I stayed blind for so long. The truth is, love can make even the smartest person believe a beautiful lie. But once I saw her for who she really was, I didn't just lose her, I found myself. She built her life on deception, and I rebuilt mine on freedom. Because sometimes, losing the wrong person is the only way to find the right version of you. If this story made your heart race, or reminded you how fragile trust can be, take a moment to share it. Someone out there might need to hear it tonight. And if you believe that truth always finds its way out, even through the deepest lies, hit that subscribe button and stay with me for more stories that prove it. But tell me one thing. If you were in my place and you discovered the person you loved was living a second life, would you forgive them or expose them?